How does a mind built for detail find its sense of belonging in a world made for others? Published on 9 June 2026, the piece explores the side of neurodivergence that rarely makes it into a clinical manual. While diagnostic criteria focus on deficits and social friction, the writing looks at the internal rewards of an autistic mind, the intense satisfaction of a solved puzzle, or the singing mind found in a flow state. It considers why the solitary world of an autistic person is so often framed as a tragedy, when, for those living inside it, it can be a place of profound sensory delight and insatiable curiosity. Written by Sarah Hendricks in Aeon. Narrated for Ava. Being autistic can be a lot of fun. I say that as an adult diagnosed autistic and ADHD adult who has spent the past 20 years working in the autism world, meeting thousands of autistic people and their families, writing books and speaking publicly on the subject. It's not always fun, that's for sure, but given that the nature of being human comes with a whole plethora of complexities and contradictions, light and dark, it is, of course, highly possible that a package of atypical cognitive processes, perceptions and behaviours, clinically categorised as dysfunctional and disabling, can also bring a whole load of satisfaction and pleasure. Even so, I imagine that for some people, the concept of being autistic as being joyful is a tough one to square, given that the diagnostic criteria for autism spectrum disorder defines it as characterised by varying but often marked and persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction. Still not convinced? Let's think of being autistic in the same way that we think of a socially driven person who may thrive and excel in a busy environment and then struggle when alone, or of a highly moral person who may be jubilant when justice prevails and then devastated when it does not. In other words, one natural tendency can bring us both challenges and elation, depending on the circumstances. The same is true for autistic characteristics. I should note that the following celebration of autistic delight does not negate or trivialise the very real and often disabling experience of living as an autistic person in a non-autistic world. I also recognise my own privilege as an autistic adult who is able to live relatively independently and with agency, but also as an autistic adult who, despite appearances, received my own diagnosis of autism by fair means, complete with the requisite impairments and deficits. The most pervasive autistic characteristic that demonstrates both the pleasure and the pain of an autistic life for me personally is that of curiosity, or the need to know stuff. I need or want to know everything. I wake up every morning with questions filling my head, several of which will get answered, throughout the night if I wake, by my trusty pal Google, or by consulting one of my numerous and detailed spreadsheets. Answers reduce anxiety in my world. This desire to know everything about everything is a core feature of many autistic people, driven by a combination of needs and wants. In essence, the autistic brain has a preference for certainty and predictability, and doesn't adapt quickly and comfortably to surprises, change, and unknowns. For example, due to some differences in understanding of vague, nuanced, and ambiguous language, many of us are frequently confused, despite good intellectual ability, by what people mean and what they want from us. So, in order to level the playing field with everyone else in the room, we ask questions to get the clarity we need. The autistic mind is also far more comfortable when there is a good amount of detail and information about the present and future circumstances in which we find ourselves, often requiring details and information to a much greater degree than others do. So, we ask questions. Who will be there? When will it end? What time is lunch? Where will I sit? When my autistic partner and I are due to attend a training course or meeting of any sort, we gently remind each other to try not to be the annoying one who asks all the questions. But, inevitably, on our return, we were. I once met an autistic man who told me that he liked to look into the windows of houses that he passed, and that he wished he could see into the windows of every house in the world, because then he would know everything there was to know about the people who lived in them. He said that not being able to do so was frustrating and a little scary for him because he was living in a world with a lot of people that he didn't know. Eureka! Oh, the joy! Another piece of the puzzle placed in its rightful home. The joyful aspect of finding the answers to all the questions comes from not only needing to know everything about everything, but also wanting to know everything about everything, because it's also unbelievably interesting, hence the curiosity. The autistic writer Peak Afflatus described it to me thus: an insatiable curiosity that follows thoughts wherever they lead. A single question can reveal a tapestry of patterns and connections, each thread adding another layer of understanding and more colours to discover. Colours. That is such a great word to describe the brightness that knowledge and understanding bring to my world. I cannot fathom how autistic people coped before Google, and I am quite sure that all the weirdest questions on Google are asked by autistic people. I am perpetually looking for connections and typing in two apparently random words and discovering that they are linked. Eureka! Oh, the joy! Another piece of the puzzle placed in its rightful home. Finding patterns and connections brings the level of joy to me that others presumably find in hard drugs or alcohol, but my experience is that many non-autistic adults do not share quite such a fascination with so many tiny aspects of life, and most certainly do not want to hear about my own monumental discoveries, at length, and in great detail. Of course, they have hobbies and passions that occupy their minds and their times, but for the most part, it seems, in my humble opinion, that they are often more occupied by their relationships and the wider world than with asking Google where in the world grows most of the butternut squash sold in the UK. If you're interested, it's Spain, which is crazy. The zoning in on these multiple areas of curiosity leads to the autistic person's intense interest, which may last a lifetime, a week, or just as long as it takes until the central question has been answered. Traditionally, the topics that took the top spots used to be considered largely fact-based and for children, e.g. dinosaurs, transport, trains and cars. More recently, Harry Potter, Pokemon and K-pop demon hunters are more common interests for the younger autistic, with anything and everything being an option for older autistics, as long as there is knowledge to be learned and a familiarity to be gained. I have met autistic people with deep and lasting passions, extensive expert-level knowledge and or collections of or about light bulbs, plants, fish, Taylor Swift, psychology, herbal medicine, wrestling, and anything else you can think of. However, it is not the subject that gives a glimpse of autism. It is the depth, the intensity, and the joy of engaging with it and expanding it with new knowledge. Steph Jones, the autistic author of The Autistic Survival Guide to Therapy, 2024, shares her own delight in her interests. Special interests make me feel alive, like I'm connected to something bigger than I am. It feels like a totally immersive flow state where there are no other thoughts. It's like you're swimming in the interest and can't shift your focus off it. For me, my interests are one of the most satisfying parts of my life. I am a serial artist and crafter and language learner, often feeling that surely I have exhausted every possible new thing to be excited about. But then along comes another one, piqued by some small exposure to it, or by the need to solve another problem with another interest. For example, never in a million years had I envisaged that I would decide to become a playwright until a few months ago. But when you take up acting and discover that there aren't too many interesting roles for women of my age, and that the demand for them is great, you need to find a solution to your own problem. Hence, I am studying to become a playwright in order to write parts for myself. I will then likely learn how to become a director and producer and put on the plays myself. When I shared this with a group of neurodivergent friends, they all nodded with complete understanding that, of course, that's what any logical person would do. I am currently down a deep rabbit hole of plot structure, character development, exposition, and inciting incidents, along with the critical analysis of every play I can watch live or online. In these moments, I can feel like Scarlett Johansson's character, Lucy, in the 2014 film of the same name, whose brain capacity expands to suck up the knowledge of the universe. In my case, every neuron feels like it's firing and connecting, and I never feel more alive than at that moment. Intense interests form an intrinsic part of the diagnostic profile of autism for many people. Jess Hendricks, the autistic co-author of Could I Really Be Autistic? 2025, a mentor and my daughter, shares this intensity of involvement in her passions. When our individual enthusiasms coincide, as they often do in the case of craft, we have a fine time swapping ideas and spending whole weekends creating stuff and going on art courses together. And we never judge each other when an interest leaves the building and is replaced by a new one. Instead, we rejoice the birth of the next fascinating thing to arrive in our lives. Jess believes the joy that she gets from engaging in her numerous interests is wholly due to her being autistic. I don't think I have met a neurotypical person that gets sucked into their interests, hobbies in the same way. I love doing the research, learning new things and then trying them out, finishing a project, or even just buying a new bit of kit.
In Could I Really Be Autistic?, Jess and I discuss how intense interests form an intrinsic part of the diagnostic profile of autism for many people, and that the identification of this important part of their lives can be a piece in the puzzle that leads to a diagnosis of autism for some. From thinking that everyone shares the same joy from their hobbies as they do, the autistic person may come to a realization that they may be unusual in this. Mona Kay, the host of the podcast Neurodiverse Love and other resources for neurodivergent couples, finds the same in the autistic people she supports. The joy they get from their special interests is sometimes indescribable. It's being in the zone, and nothing bothers them or impacts them except the thing they're doing that engages many of their senses and gives them hours of uninterrupted fun and pleasure. It's pure bliss that maybe no one else in their family can fully understand. Learning about materials and processes and solving the puzzle of the execution are all wonderful experiences for me. The research into every aspect of the activity is all part of the fun, and for some, it can lead to successful careers. The 2025 Turner Prize was won by the British artist Nina Kalu, an autistic woman who is partially non-verbal. Many from the field of science throughout history are now thought to have been autistic, no doubt all connected by their insatiable drive to know how stuff fits together and works. One of the contributors to my book Women and Girls on the Autism Spectrum, 2nd edition 2024, shared this about her interests and her love of them. I have had and have so many. Is it dinosaurs? Yes. Is it anthropology? Yes. Is it singing? Yes. Is it colouring? Yes. Did I have all the crayons as a child? Yes. Do I have all the crayons now? Yes. They are just more expensive. Do I talk about everything all the time? Is it annoying to others? Yes. What is the trigger? Don't know. What are the emotions? Joy? Happiness? Is it negative? Maybe. But who cares? Another aspect of autistic joy that's connected to the desire for knowledge and completeness is the extraordinary eye for detail that many of us share, which combined with curiosity makes being out in the world a continually stimulating experience. I will always be the person to see the bug, the flower, the bird, and I will find out what they are and learn about them. I have all the plant and birdsong ID apps, and I want to know what's around me. This might extend to our home environments, where some of us seek symmetry, aesthetic beauty, and order, which bring us a deep sense of calm. I am continually tidying my home, and recall the same as a child, when I would spend more time trying to find the perfect system for the storage of my Lego blocks than I did actually building anything with them. I am not alone in this, as Alex Morgan, the author and founder of the Autistic Woman website, told me, "My brain prefers focusing in on the small things, details, patterns, variations in shade. That's why arranging my bookshelves by the colour of the spines, collecting vintage china, and decanting the contents of my kitchen cupboards into matching jars bring me such joy." A common trait of many autistic people that I have met is the ability to spot anomalies in computer code, errors in writing, or small changes in people and physical environments, which are valuable skills in the working world. I see and hear patterns, whether I want to or not, which can be entertaining when sitting in a doctor's waiting room looking at the repeats in the wallpaper, but annoying when listening to an ambient noise recording and immediately hearing where the loop ends and starts, making it far less relaxing than it might be if I could ignore that. I am excellent at jigsaws, often selecting pieces by their shape rather than the colours on them, and I have an uncanny ability to throw laundry across the room into the laundry bin, and to estimate the volumetric capacity of any container with great accuracy to within a few cubic millimetres. My autistic partner can tell the time and the outside temperature with similar precision. We have no idea why or how we can perform these pointless talents, but we revel and celebrate them in ourselves and in each other, allies of strangeness in an alien world. The downside of seeing, hearing, and noticing every aspect of the external world can be sensory exhaustion. Having a different sensory perception across one or more sense is a diagnostic feature of autism, and can lead to a need to retreat to a less overwhelming environment, perhaps sooner than others might. A sensitivity to certain sounds, frequencies, light, smells, and touch can have a big impact on the level of comfort that accompanies everyday activities, making some of these activities intolerable and inaccessible for some autistic people.
Clothes may need to be selected for texture rather than appearance, sunglasses worn indoors, and loud, busy places entirely avoided. Visual disorder and things being out of place can feel deeply disturbing, and for me, I cannot work or function until things are back where they belong. Nature, however, is permitted to be untidy. Many autistic people cite nature as being a place of deep calm and joy for them. There, the noticing and atypical sensory experience can grant access to a heightened world of sensory joy rather than be a barrier to a comfortable experience. Chelsea Flood, the autistic author of Drinking to Mask and Unmask, The Neurodivergent Addiction Crisis Hiding in Plain Sight, 2026, expresses exactly this notion. I can feel extraordinary joy from seeing beautiful, detailed things, for example, lichen lit up at the bottom of a tree. There is a joy I feel when with the natural world that feels timeless and peaceful and unlimited, and I can tap into it very easily. My baseline, when uninterrupted by what I call physical world or time-space continuum, is almost ecstatically happy, as I very easily find pleasure in the simplest of things. Peak Afflatus, author of the essay collection A Comprehensive Breakdown, 2025, sums up autistic joy and how it can develop into a flow state where the challenges and concerns of autistic daily life disappear and the mind is free to roam. One joy of being autistic is what I think of as a singing mind. When I am alone in nature or deeply immersed in a project, patterns and ideas fall into joyful harmony. In those moments, I feel free from imagined constraints and judgments, with a sense of belonging that feels almost boundless, as though I am exactly where I should be. Peak's sense of belonging, found by being alone rather than within the world of others, is pertinent, given that for decades autistic individuals have been described as being in their own little world, as though this was a negative trait. Maybe, with the insights from autistic adults about the joy of this chosen solitary world of revelry, we can begin to understand that it's not always such a bad place to be after all.